7 months ago. I won $12.7 million. I didn't scream. I didn't jump around the room. I didn't even tell my daughter. I just stared at the screen, the numbers glowing back at me like they'd been waiting for this moment for years. And in that moment, I made the kind of decision most people wouldn't understand. I wasn't going to tell my family. Not my brother. Not my sister. Not even the people who had known me my whole life. Because I already knew, money doesn't just change your bank account. It changes people. It changes relationships. And it changes the way the people you love look at you. Before I explain why I made that choice, let me give you one promise. By the end of this story, you'll see that I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't selfish. I was right. And I found out exactly who my real family was. And it wasn't who I thought. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I tell real-life stories that will make you rethink the way you see the people around you. If that sounds like your kind of thing, please take a second right now to hit subscribe. It means more than you know. Also, in the comments below, tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Whether you're in a busy city like New York or London, or a quiet village I've never heard of, I love hearing from you. Alright, now let's rewind to the morning that turned my life upside down. It started the same as any other Tuesday, until it wasn't. It was a Tuesday morning in March, the kind of morning that feels like it's just filling space between more important days. The sky outside my kitchen window was still a dull winter gray, and the radiator in the corner was making that faint knocking sound it always made when it was trying, and failing, to heat the whole apartment. I was 43 years old, divorced for 3 years, and raising my teenage daughter Emma on my own. The night before, I'd stayed up too late finishing paperwork for my second job, a part-time evening shift at a small retail shop. That's what my life looked like at the time. 2 jobs, constant bills, and a mental list of things we needed but couldn't afford. My morning routine was automatic. Start the coffee, wake Emma, check my phone while pretending to be more awake than I actually was. That morning, as the coffee brewed, filling the small kitchen with the bittersweet smell that was the only luxury I allowed myself, Emma shuffled into the kitchen, hair messy, backpack hanging off one shoulder. Mom, have you seen my chemistry book? I swear I left it on the table. I barely looked up from my phone. Did you check under your bed? You know that's where things disappear to. And then, that sound. Ping. The lottery app notification. Check your numbers from last night's drawing. Now, I'd been buying the same numbers for 15 years. My birthday. Emma's birthday. My late mother's birthday. 23. 16. 4. And a few others that felt lucky for reasons I couldn't even explain anymore. I almost ignored the notification. Why bother? Every other time I'd checked, it was the same disappointment. A couple of numbers matched here or there, maybe enough for a $2 win, never enough to matter. But something, I don't know what, made me tap it. The screen loaded slowly, almost like it was teasing me. 23, match. 16, match. 4, match. My finger froze above the screen. The next number, match. The one after that, match. The 6th number, match. And then, the Powerball number lit up in green. Match. I remember my brain going completely blank for a second, as if it was trying to reboot. I stared at the total, $12,700,000. It didn't look real. It looked like something from a movie scene, the kind where the character's life changes in an instant. I looked around my small, cluttered kitchen. The faucet was still dripping into the sink. The stack of unpaid bills on the counter was still there. The corner of an eviction notice peeked out from under a magnet on the fridge, a bright yellow reminder of how close we were to losing even this tiny place. Emma's voice pulled me back. Mom? Are you okay? You look weird. I forced my lips into something like a smile. I'm fine, honey. Just thinking. Inside, my heart was hammering. I could feel every beat in my fingertips. My legs felt shaky, like I'd just run up a flight of stairs. But here's the strange part. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't dance around the room. Instead, a wave of something else hit me, caution. In that exact moment, with the kitchen clock ticking behind me and my daughter looking at me from across the table, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't telling anyone. Not yet. Not even Emma. For the first 24 hours, I lived in a strange bubble where everything looked normal but nothing felt the same. I still went to work. I still packed Emma's lunch. I still passed the same apartment doors in our hall with the peeling numbers and the smell of old carpet cleaner. But inside my head, every sound was louder. The ping of the kettle, the hum of the refrigerator, the way the radiator coughed like a smoker. That evening, after Emma fell asleep with a sweatshirt draped over her like a blanket, I sat at our wobbly kitchen table with my phone face down and a notepad. I wrote 3 words at the top: "Don't be stupid." I underlined it twice. I didn't want to be a headline or a cautionary tale. Single mom wins big, loses everything. I didn't want second cousins crawling out of the woodwork with opportunities. And I definitely didn't want to hand my brother Michael a reason to manage my life. I started with the practical. The next morning on my coffee break, I called a financial advisor, someone a coworker once mentioned in passing as boring in the best way. I told him I was asking for a hypothetical friend. He didn't believe me, but he also didn't press. We scheduled a quiet meeting at 7 a.m. before the office opened. He was exactly as advertised, cautious, unglamorous, with a tie that might have been from another decade. "Rule 1, he said, sliding a legal pad toward me, "no sudden lifestyle changes. Rule 2, hide the money from your impulses before you hide it from anyone else." We set up trusts with guardrails. We planned for taxes like they were hurricanes. We created an education fund for Emma so secure it would survive my worst decisions and everyone else's best intentions. At home, I practiced keeping my face neutral. I learned to say, "We'll make it work," with the same tired smile I'd always used so Emma wouldn't suspect a thing. I paid the water bill and purposely let the leaky faucet keep leaking another week. The secrecy had weight. Not heavy like guilt, heavy like armor. Every time I almost blurted it out, I pictured Michael's eyebrows lifting like a calculator booting up. I pictured Jessica's mouth forming that sympathetic "oh she saves" for tragedy and gossip. At night, I sat at the edge of my bed scrolling anonymous donation forms. I gave to the community pantry that once gave me groceries without questions. I covered 2 dental surgeries through a local foundation because teeth should not be a luxury. I paid the overdue balance on the after-school program where Emma once waited with her backpack on her knees because I was late again. Then I did small, quiet things that made our life feel less like a tightrope. Replaced the lamp with a switch that didn't spark. Bought 2 new pillows that didn't crunch with age. Hired a plumber to fix the faucet. Next week. Keeping the secret was like carrying an egg on a spoon. Every conversation was a careful step. When Emma asked, "Can we order takeout tonight?" I heard myself say, "Let's cook and save the money," and felt a pinch of shame, then a strange relief. I was testing something. Would people still show up for us when they thought we had nothing? Could I trust the people who came anyway? Weeks blurred. The money sat where it belonged, secure, invisible, dull on purpose. And society kept handing me moments where confession would have been easy, like when the landlord threatened a rent increase, or when Emma's sneakers squeaked because the soles were worn thin. I stayed silent. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was watching. I was listening. I was learning who saw me when there wasn't anything to take. The envelope from Northwestern arrived with the thick confidence of good news. Emma stood in the kitchen holding it like it might explode. "Open it," I whispered, because my voice wouldn't go louder. She read the first line and burst into this radiant, disbelieving laughter that made her look 5 and 20 at the same time. "Mom," I got in. Mom." She flung her arms around me, and we cried into each other's shoulders with the happiness of people who know what things cost. Then she found the tuition page. The numbers were skyscrapers. We both stared like tourists with necks craned back. 6, 0, 0, 0, 0. A neat tower climbing past the clouds. She swallowed first. "Maybe I could do community college for 2 years and transfer," she said, in that careful tone kids use when they're trying to protect their parents. "I mean, it's practical." Practical is what people say when impossible is too cruel. I made tea so I'd have something to hold. Stirring gives you time to think. While I stirred, I thought about the last time my family had anything to divide. When our parents died. I remembered Michael's voice, just trying to be logical, which is how he labels anything that feels heartless. I remembered Jessica's sudden fixation on spreadsheets and fairness, which meant, how do I get more? I remembered sitting between them like a referee with no whistle. I had a choice. I could tell Emma everything and watch her face light up in relief. Or I could keep watching the world show me who it was. I called Michael. He answered on the 3rd ring with the energy of someone between meetings. "Hey, kiddo, what's up?" He calls me kiddo when he's about to say no. "Emma got into Northwestern," I said, letting pride thicken my voice. "The tuition is big. I wondered if you could help with a small loan I'd pay back. Even a portion." Silence. A sigh. Keys clacking. He was checking his calendar, not his heart. "Sarah, you know I'd love to help," he said with the careful cadence of a man negotiating with optics. "But the boys' hockey, the new house, things are tight. Student loans exist for a reason." Right, I said, and felt the familiar click of a door closing somewhere I used to live. I called Jessica next. She put me on speaker while chopping something expensive. Her knife hit the board like a metronome. Northwestern, I said, and smiled into the phone like she could hear it. Do you think you could help a little? A small loan? Anything? She said, knife still tapping. Sarah, I hope you're not calling everyone in the family asking for handouts. Emma is smart. Scholarships. Work study. This might be a good lesson about hard work. There it was. The lesson I didn't ask for. After those calls, I sat on the edge of the tub while the kettle screamed. It felt like grief, hot, unreasonable, loud in places no one could see. Not because they said no. Because when they thought I had nothing, they had nothing for me. That night, when Emma asked if I was okay, I said, "We're going to be fine," and I meant it. But I also wrote a sentence in my notebook. Believe behavior, not biographies. The next morning, Mrs. Chen knocked on our door with the soft, polite taps of someone who never wants to wake a baby. She wore her good cardigan, the one with tiny pearl buttons, and held an envelope with both hands like it contained something breakable. I heard from the super that Emma got into a very good school, she said. Her eyes shone with a pride that made me bite my lip. This is not much. But it is something. Mrs. Chen, you don't. She pressed the envelope into my palm. Inside, $500 in neat 20s. The bills had been ironed by love. You helped me with my groceries during the snow week, she said. You carried the bags up the stairs when I had the cough. We help each other. This is how the world should work. At work, Janet cornered me by the break room fridge with the conspiratorial grin of someone about to do a kindness they're shy about. Okay, don't be mad, she whispered, which is what generous people say before they hand you light. I've been putting away $5 here and there. It's not much, but I want Emma to have it. She slipped $200 into my hand and looked at the floor like she had broken a rule. I know what it is to want more for your kids than you can afford. We hugged in that awkward elbow around the coffee mugs way coworkers hug when they're trying not to spill feelings on the carpet. 2 days later, Mr. Rodriguez called. Sarah, I hope you don't mind, he said, and teachers always say that when they've done something extraordinary on their own time. I made a few calls. Northwestern has some departmental scholarships. I wrote a recommendation and sent it early. Emma's a standout. I stared at our kitchen wall while he spoke, at the little map of old nail holes from pictures we never rehung after the divorce. Small, dark circles where memories used to live. These three, Mrs. Chen on her fixed income, Janet with her after-school chaos, Mr. Rodriguez with his endless pile of essays to grade, they all reached into their pockets, their schedules, their hearts, and pulled out help. Not because they expected anything, because they couldn't not. That night, I stood at the window and watched the snow gather in the orange streetlight glow, the way it erases edges and quiets everything. And I felt something else settle over me, certainty. When people think you're poor, their choices tell the truth. I was seeing truth everywhere. By November, the secret had become a roommate that never paid rent but kept the place safe. I hosted Thanksgiving like I always did, because rituals hold people together even when the glue has dried. I ironed the one tablecloth that still had no stains. Emma and I baked pies in our small oven that runs hot on one side and cold on the other, rotating them like the earth to keep seasons even. The apartment smelled like butter and cinnamon and the tiniest hint of nerves. Michael arrived first, in a car that could pay our rent for a year. He swept in with the dominate the room energy lawyer's practice in the mirror. Traffic was murder, he announced, as if he had wrestled it into submission by sheer rhetoric. He hugged Emma and patted me like I was a client who'd brought the wrong folder. Jessica followed in a camel coat that made me want to check our thermostat. She carried flowers with the careful disdain of someone transporting a gift she would not display in her house. Prices are insane this year, she said, breezing past the food she wasn't paying for. Even my house cleaner raised her rates. Can you believe? I believed many things about her that she would not like to hear. Dinner was a symphony of almosts. Almost warm enough, almost enough chairs, almost enough patience. Emma was graceful, passing dishes, refilling glasses, laughing at the right intervals. My siblings told stories with numbers in them, square footage, miles per hour, price per plate. I told stories with people in them, Mrs. Chen, Janet, Mr. Rodriguez, careful not to give away their goodness with names. After pie, Michael pulled out one of the old photo albums, black pages with photo corners, our family in the glossy frieze of moments we no longer share. He flipped to the page with Mom's jewelry, pearls like moons, the gold bracelet Dad saved 3 overtime shifts to buy. Hey, he said, casual but pointed, whatever happened to these? That's when an old muscle flexed. the one that protected me when I had nothing but choices to explain. I sold them last year, I said, stirring the coffee I'd already finished. Things were tight. The room went quiet the way rooms do before someone says something they can't take back. Jessica's voice snapped first. You sold Mom's pearls? Her hands went to her neck like a reflex. Those were heirlooms, Sarah. You should have asked us before you. Before I what? I said, not loud, just sharp. Before I paid the rent so your niece had a place to sleep? Before I kept the lights on without calling you? Michael folded his arms, lawyer mode. If you were having money troubles, you could have come to us. I did, I said, and let the words sit. I called you both. I asked for help for Emma's tuition. Jessica reached for the dish towel and squeezed it like it might confess. Well, maybe if you'd made better decisions after the divorce, you wouldn't be in this position. The sentence clicked a lock I didn't know was there. I stood, my hands steady. You want to talk about decisions? I took a breath, felt it fill my ribs like courage. 7 months ago, I won $12.7 million. Silence isn't empty. It's crowded. In that silence were every assumption they'd made about me, all the small ways they'd measured my worth. Michael blinked first. Jessica sat down like her knees had opinions. Emma froze with a stack of plates in her hands, her eyes moving from face to face as if reading a script no one had handed her. Yes, I said. I won. I didn't tell you. And for 7 months, I watched. Why didn't you tell us? Michael asked, voice tight, like he'd swallowed a stone. I tilted my head. When I asked you for a loan for Emma, you were stretched thin. He opened his mouth, closed it. That was timing. If I'd known. You would have helped, I finished, for him. Because then there would be a return. Jessica found her footing in indignation. So you kept us in the dark and watched us, what? Fail your morality test? Her laugh was a small, mean thing. Do you realize how manipulative that is? What I realized, I said, is that when you thought I had nothing to give you, you had nothing for me. They both started revising history. Michael layered on phrases like miscommunication and misunderstanding. Jessica switched to the language of concern and boundaries, the way people do when their behavior is just a costume they shrug off between acts. I recorded our calls, I said into their noise. Silence again. This one colder. Michael, you said, that's what loans are for. Jessica, you said, this might be a good lesson for Emma about hard work. Meanwhile, Mrs. Chen gave us $500 she couldn't spare. Janet offered $200 she'd been saving for months. Mr. Rodriguez gave us time he didn't have. Those are the receipts I kept. Michael's phone buzzed and he stared at the screen like it would give him a different sister. We should handle this privately, he said finally, defaulting to committee. Talk about family finances, next steps. There are no family finances, I said, gentle but firm. I bought the ticket. I chose the numbers. I won. Jessica leaned forward, palms out. But surely you don't expect to keep it all to yourself. We're family. I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. Family is not a key to someone else's house. Emma's fork clinked softly as she set it down. Her face was careful, brave. She stood without a word and went to her room. Michael's mouth pressed into a line. If you're determined to be reckless, at least let me introduce you to someone who can structure things. There are trusts. I have a team, I said. Boring, careful, older than the internet. Jessica sighed like a martyr. You're shutting us out. I'm doing what I've always done, I said. Protecting what's mine so I can protect who's mine. They left soon after, trailing apologies that were really arguments and "we love yous" that sounded like brand slogans. The door clicked. Air returned to the room. I knocked gently. Emma was sitting on her bed, knees up, hands wrapped around her shins, like she was trying to make herself the right size for the moment. Is it true? She asked, eyes wide and steady. Yes, I said, sitting on the floor so I wouldn't tower over her. It's true. In March. She exhaled through her nose, a slow, thoughtful breath. You watched me worry about college. I did. And you watched me decide to go to community college first. I did. She looked at her hands. Are you disappointed in me? Disappointed? I moved to the edge of the bed. Emma, I'm in awe of you. You were ready to choose us over you. Not because you don't have ambition, but because you have character. We sat in the quiet for a minute that lasted years. I wanted to be sure, I said. I wanted to know who would show up when they thought there was nothing to gain. I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry for that. She nodded, chewing the inside of her cheek the way she does when she's making room for a new idea. I'm not mad, she said finally. I'm glad I know who I am too. We made cocoa with too many marshmallows and drank it on the floor like a picnic. We made a plan. We would decide together what to do with the truth. We would draw circles around the people who earned seats at our table. And we would never let money be the loudest person in the room. First, we made things right with the people who had lifted us when they thought we were heavy. We paid back Mrs. Chen, not just her $500, but every medical bill she worried over in silence. We had her apartment quietly renovated, the tub safer, the cabinets lowered, the balcony rail mended so she could grow the herbs she missed from home. The super cried when he saw the work order. Mrs. Chen pretended not to notice the new kettle we left on her stove. Janet found 3 envelopes in her mailbox, one for each of her kids. Each held a letter and the start of an education fund. No conditions, the note read. Only this. When you can, be someone else's, Janet. We stocked her pantry for a year through a local grocer, anonymous, but with a handwritten card in crooked block letters that looked suspiciously like Emma's. Thank you for believing in me. Mr. Rodriguez received an email from a local foundation he'd never heard of, approving a grant for lab supplies, new goggles, and a dishwasher for the beakers. Teachers shouldn't have to beg for soap, the program officer told him on the phone. He laughed until he sounded like he might cry. We kept our names out of the stories, not because we were noble, because we wanted the goodness to feel like weather, something that just happens sometimes. We still clipped coupons because old habits take the stairs. We still returned the cart to the corral because that's who we are. But the constant ache behind everything, the math that made ordinary life a series of negotiations, eased. And in our very ordinary kitchen, with our very unfancy bowls and spoons, we felt very rich. Here's what money taught me by refusing to speak above a whisper. Money doesn't change people. It magnifies them. Mrs. Chen had always been generous. The envelope just made it visible. Janet had always been someone who shows up. The $200 was proof. Michael and Jessica had always been themselves. The silence when I asked for help was just amplification. Boundaries are compassion's spine. I keep my siblings at a distance that's both kind and accurate. We do birthdays. We text on holidays. We don't do advice about what you should do with your money. And we definitely don't do family investment opportunities. Gratitude is not a performance. It's how you bag your own groceries when the clerk is overwhelmed. It's how you tip quietly without making a show. It's how you remember who stood nearby when you were small. Shame is a bad accountant. It keeps charging you for things you didn't buy. I stopped paying shame. I started paying attention. I went to therapy because secrets leave echoes. I talked about how it felt to be seen as less than by the people who share my last name. I talked about how it felt to be seen as more than by strangers who loved us better than kin. My therapist said, "You are grieving an imaginary family." I wrote that down and drew a box around it. And I forgave my siblings. Not for them, for me. Forgiveness is not reunion. It's releasing yourself from playing both parts in a conversation that never changes. Emma started at Northwestern in the fall with a backpack that didn't squeak and a schedule that made her glow. She picked social work as a major and business as a minor because she wants to help people without asking permission from spreadsheets. She works a campus job not because she has to, but because she likes the feeling of trading effort for impact. We moved to a different place, a 3-bedroom house with a porch just deep enough for 2 chairs and a glass of iced tea. It is not a mansion. It is a home built for ordinary joy. We still argue about the dishwasher. We still eat pancakes for dinner sometimes. We still donate coats in winter because we remember cold. I volunteer at a literacy center where moms show up in uniforms that smell like shifts and try to read while their kids build towers out of worn blocks. I sit beside them, sounding out words like enough and future, and we laugh when our tongues trip. Sometimes I bring snacks. Sometimes I bring nothing but time. Both matter. As for Michael and Jessica, I invite them to the big things. I keep calls short and honest. When Michael slips into salesman voice, I say, "This isn't a business call," and he sighs and remembers how to be my brother. When Jessica arrives with a gift bag and an agenda, I take the bag and check the agenda at the door. We are fine. Fine is a kind of peace. There are 2 kinds of love in this world. The love that shows up when you have something to offer, and the love that shows up when you have nothing left to give. In the 7 months when the people around me thought I was broke, I saw both. One was loud and conditional. The other was quiet and endless. If you're listening to this and you're still waiting for the big win, money, job, relationship, this is what I know. The people who are gentle with you now are the ones you can build forever on. And if you have the big win and you're terrified it will cost you everything, this is also what I know. You get to choose who sits at your table. Set it with intention. Save a chair for the ones who brought soup when you were sick. Money didn't make me wise. Paying attention did. So here's the sentence I keep on the inside cover of my notebook. $12.7 million didn't change my life. Knowing who truly cared did. If this story found you at the right time, I'm glad you're here. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. It helps me keep sharing real stories with you. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one and I love saying hello around the world. Take care of each other. Tip quietly. Call the neighbor anyway. And remember, the people who love you when you have nothing are the ones worth having everything for.